The sound of my sister Vanessa's laughter drifted through the kitchen window as I approached my parents' house, but something about it made my stomach clench. It wasn't the warm laugh I remembered from our childhood. It was cold, calculating. I paused at the side gate, my hand trembling as I reached for the latch. God, he's so gullible, Vanessa's voice carried clearly through the open window. Did you see his face when I told him about the emergency surgery for Mom? He didn't even ask for medical records. My father's gruff voice joined in. $45,000 just like that. The fool actually believes we're grateful. The best part, my mother chimed in, her voice dripping with satisfaction, is that he thinks he's the family hero. Little does he know we've been planning this for months. Once we get him to sign those property transfer papers next week, we'll have everything. The grocery bag slipped from my hands, cans rolling across the driveway with hollow clanks. My legs went weak and I gripped the fence post to keep from falling. 3 years of monthly payments, emergency funds, gifts and support, all of it had been a lie. What about Aunt Dorothy? Vanessa asked. She keeps warning him about us. Dad's voice turned menacing. That old bat won't be a problem much longer. Once we have control of his assets, she can rot in that retirement home for all I care. My chest felt like it was caving in. Aunt Dorothy, the only family member who'd ever truly believed in me, who'd helped me through my darkest days when I was building my landscaping business from nothing. They were planning to abandon her. I backed away from the house, my hands shaking so violently I could barely start my truck. As I drove away, one thought echoed in my mind: they had no idea what they had just unleashed. If you're new here, subscribe to this channel for more gripping stories where justice hits hard and betrayal never goes unpunished. My name is Garrett Holbrook, and at 34, I own the most successful landscaping company in 3 counties. But success hadn't come easy. 10 years ago, I was sleeping in my beat-up Ford pickup, using gas station bathrooms to get ready for job interviews, living off dollar menu burgers and hope. The transformation began when Aunt Dorothy, my father's older sister, took a chance on me. While my parents, Kenneth and Linda Holbrook, dismissed my business dreams as unrealistic fantasies, Dorothy mortgaged her small house to loan me $12,000 for equipment and a down payment on commercial space. Garrett, she'd said, pressing the check into my hands with her weathered fingers, I see something in you that others don't. Your grandfather had that same fire. Don't let anyone extinguish it. Those words sustained me through 18-hour workdays, through clients who didn't pay, through the first brutal winter when I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But slowly, methodically, Holbrook Landscapes grew. I specialized in high-end residential projects, combining artistic design with practical maintenance solutions. By year 3, I was employing 15 people. By year 5, I'd expanded into commercial contracts. Now, at 10 years in, my company generated $2.8 million annually, and I personally netted just over $400,000 a year. The first thing I did when I started making real money was pay Dorothy back, with interest. But she refused anything beyond the original loan amount. Seeing you succeed is payment enough, she'd insisted, her eyes bright with pride. The second thing I did was help my family. My parents had struggled financially my entire childhood. Dad worked construction, but his drinking and abrasive personality meant he was frequently unemployed. Mom cleaned houses and took in ironing, her hands perpetually cracked from harsh chemicals. My younger sister Vanessa, now 29, had dropped out of college to care for Mom during a difficult bout with pneumonia and never returned. When my business started generating serious income, I saw an opportunity to change their lives. I bought them a modest 3-bedroom house in a safe neighborhood, nothing ostentatious, but a world away from the cramped apartment where I'd grown up. The mortgage was $187,000, which I paid in full. I can't believe this is really ours, Mom had whispered, running her fingers along the granite countertops. Dad had actually cried, something I'd never seen before. Son, I don't know how to thank you. Vanessa had hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. You're the best brother anyone could ask for. I also bought Dad a reliable truck to replace the constantly breaking down vehicle that had caused him to lose several jobs. For Vanessa, I purchased a small car and promised to help her finish her degree if she wanted to return to school. But the gifts were just the beginning. I started sending them $3,000 monthly, enough to cover all their expenses and then some. Dad could finally stop taking construction jobs that destroyed his back. Mom could quit cleaning houses. Vanessa could focus on figuring out her next steps without financial pressure. For the first time in my life, my family seemed proud of me. Dad would brag to his friends about his successful son. Mom would introduce me to her church friends as my boy who owns his own company. Vanessa would post pictures of us together on social media with captions about how grateful she was for her amazing big brother. I felt like I'd finally proven myself worthy of their love. Dorothy was supportive but cautious. During our weekly dinners at her small apartment, she'd listen to my updates about the family with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Just be careful, sweetheart," she'd say, patting my hand. "Sometimes when you solve all of someone's problems, you become their problem." I'd laugh off her concerns. "Dorothy, they're my family. They love me." She'd nod slowly, but her sharp blue eyes held worry. "Love and gratitude aren't the same thing, Garrett. And gratitude, real gratitude, doesn't come with constantly extending hands." I should have listened. The request started small. Dad needed money for truck repairs, $800. Mom required dental work, $1,200. Vanessa wanted to take a pottery class, $350. Each request came with elaborate explanations and genuine seeming gratitude. "You've already done so much," Vanessa would say, tears in her eyes. "I hate to ask, but..." "Family helps family," I'd respond, transferring the money immediately. But the requests grew larger and more frequent. Dad needed a new tool set for potential freelance work, $3,000. Mom wanted to renovate the guest bathroom, $5,500. Vanessa discovered a perfect investment opportunity in her friend's boutique, $10,000. Each time I said yes. Each time I felt the warm glow of being the family provider, the successful son who could solve any problem. Dorothy's concerns intensified. "Garrett, honey, when was the last time they asked about your business? About your life? About anything that wasn't related to money?" I started paying attention, and her observation stung. Our conversations had become entirely transactional. They'd call with emergencies, I'd send money, they'd express gratitude, and we'd hang up. When I tried to share news about landing a major commercial contract or expanding into new services, their responses were perfunctory. "That's great, son," Dad would say quickly before launching into his latest financial need. Still, I pushed aside my doubts. These were the people who'd raised me, who'd been there through my struggles. If they needed help, I'd provide it. The first real crack in my trust came 6 months before that devastating conversation. Vanessa called sobbing about a car accident. "Garrett, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I rear-ended someone and their insurance is demanding $45,000 for medical bills. My insurance won't cover it all and they're threatening to sue." $45,000 was substantial even for me, but the panic in her voice convinced me. I transferred the money that afternoon. 2 weeks later, I was having lunch with Dorothy when she mentioned seeing Vanessa at the mall. "She was buying quite a wardrobe," Dorothy observed. "Expensive bags, jewelry. Strange for someone dealing with lawsuit stress." A cold suspicion crept up my spine. "What kind of bags?" "Designer ones. Louis Vuitton, I think." "She was with your mother, and they were both loaded down with shopping bags." That night, I drove past my parents' house. In the driveway sat a brand new BMW, Vanessa's car, apparently. A $45,000 car. The car accident, I realized, had been entirely fictional. When I confronted Vanessa the next day, she broke down crying. "I'm so sorry, Garrett. I was embarrassed to ask for money for a car, so I made up the accident story. I know it was wrong, but I was desperate for reliable transportation." Her tears seemed genuine, her remorse real. Against my better judgment, I forgave her. "Just promise me," I said, gripping her hands, "no more lies. If you need something, ask directly. We're family." She nodded emphatically. "Never again. I swear." But Dorothy wasn't satisfied with my explanation. "Garrett, that wasn't desperation. That was calculation. Desperate people don't orchestrate elaborate fictional scenarios." Her words planted a seed of doubt that grew stronger over the following months. I started noticing things: how my family's requests always came with emotional manipulation. How they never asked about my well-being unless it preceded a financial request. How their gratitude felt performative, like actors delivering lines. The breaking point came when Dad called about Mom's emergency surgery. "Son, your mother needs her gallbladder removed immediately. The doctor says we can't wait, but our insurance won't cover the specialist she needs. We need $45,000 by tomorrow or she could die." The urgency in his voice terrified me. I transferred the money instantly and rushed to the hospital, only to be told no surgery was scheduled. When I called Dad, he claimed there'd been a miscommunication, and Mom was being treated with medication instead. But when I stopped by their house unannounced the next day, Mom was gardening, looking healthier than she had in years. "Oh, the surgery," she said when I asked. "Yes, well, the doctor said medication would work just as well." "Lucky, really?" Her casual dismissal of what had been presented as a life-threatening emergency made my blood run cold. That evening, I sat in Dorothy's small living room, finally ready to hear what she'd been trying to tell me. "They're using you, sweetheart," she said gently. "I've watched this family for 73 years. Your parents have always looked for the easy way, and Vanessa learned from them. You became successful, so you became their solution to every problem. But they're my family," I protested weakly. "Family doesn't lie about medical emergencies. Family doesn't manipulate your love to steal your money." She took my hands in her frail ones. "Real family celebrates your success without trying to take it from you." I knew she was right, but accepting it felt like admitting I'd been a fool for 3 years. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to surprise them with groceries and cook dinner, a gesture to reconnect with them as people, not just as their financial provider. Instead, I discovered they'd been planning my complete financial ruin all along. Standing in my truck outside their house, my entire body shaking with rage and heartbreak, I forced myself to think strategically. Bursting in and confronting them would accomplish nothing except alerting them that I knew the truth. Instead, I drove to Dorothy's apartment. "They were planning to steal everything," I told her, my voice barely above a whisper. "The house, my business assets, everything. And they were going to abandon you." Dorothy's face hardened in a way I'd never seen. "Tell me exactly what you heard." I recounted the conversation word for word. Dorothy listened without interruption, her expression growing more grim with each detail. "The property transfer papers," she said finally. "They're planning something big. Garrett, you need to protect yourself immediately." "How?" "First, we document everything. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation. Then we contact your attorney. If they're planning to forge documents or coerce you into signing transfers, that's fraud." We spent the next 4 hours methodically reviewing 3 years of financial records. The pattern was undeniable: fabricated emergencies, inflated expenses, and outright lies, totaling over $340,000 beyond the house, cars, and monthly support. My attorney, Harrison Kellner, was blunt when I met with him the following morning. "Garrett, what they're doing constitutes financial elder abuse, even though you're not elderly. The systematic deception and exploitation could support fraud charges. But first, we need to protect your remaining assets." We immediately moved my business accounts to a new bank and established legal protections for my commercial properties. Harrison also helped me prepare documentation to reclaim the house and vehicles I'd purchased, since they were still legally titled in my name with the family as beneficiaries, a structure I'd created to help with their taxes but which now protected me. "Don't let them know you're aware of their plans," Harrison advised. "Let them proceed until they reveal their full intentions. We'll need clear evidence of attempted fraud for maximum legal protection." 3 days later, Vanessa called with unusual sweetness in her voice. "Garrett, we've been thinking about how grateful we are for everything you've done. We'd like to have a family dinner this Sunday to properly thank you. And there are some legal papers we'd like you to look at, just estate planning stuff to make sure you're protected." Estate planning. The property transfers they discussed. "That sounds wonderful," I replied, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. "I'll be there." After hanging up, I immediately called Harrison. "They're moving forward. Sunday dinner with papers to sign." "Perfect. Wear a recording device and don't sign anything. Let them show their full hand." Sunday arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood. I'd barely slept in days, haunted by the knowledge that my family saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM. But I was also grimly determined to see this through. The dining room was elaborately decorated when I arrived, with candles, flowers, and Mom's best china. The spread was impressive: roast beef, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, homemade rolls. It looked like a celebration. I realized, they were celebrating what they thought would be their final heist. "Garrett." Vanessa rushed to hug me, her smile brilliant. "You look wonderful. Success suits you." Dad clasped my shoulder firmly. "Son, we've been talking about how proud we are. You've exceeded every expectation." Mom kissed my cheek, her eyes sparkling. "Our successful boy. We're so lucky to have you." The performance was flawless, their affection seemingly genuine. If I hadn't overheard their real conversation, I might have believed it. Dinner proceeded with unusual warmth. They asked about my business, listened to my responses, shared funny family memories. For brief moments, I almost forgot what I knew. This was the family I'd always wanted: engaged, interested, loving. But then Dad brought out a folder of documents. "Garrett, we've been thinking about your future," he said, his tone serious. "You've worked so hard and we want to make sure you're protected if anything happens. Vanessa nodded earnestly. We've consulted with a financial advisor about the best way to structure your assets for tax purposes. The papers were professionally prepared, with official letterhead and legal language. But Harrison had prepared me to recognize the key phrases: irrevocable trust, asset transfer, designated beneficiaries. They weren't estate planning documents. They were a complete transfer of my business, personal accounts, and commercial properties into a trust controlled by my parents and Vanessa. This looks comprehensive, I said carefully, scanning the pages. But it's complex. I'd like my attorney to review it before signing. Dad's smile faltered slightly. Son, our advisor said time is crucial for tax reasons. If we don't file by next Friday, you'll lose significant benefits. Plus, Vanessa added, don't you trust us? We're your family. We'd never do anything to hurt you. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Garrett, after everything we've been through together, surely you know we only want what's best for you. The manipulation was textbook. Urgency, guilt, and emotional blackmail. 6 months ago it would have worked. Of course I trust you, I lied smoothly. But Harrison always reviews my legal documents. It's standard business practice. Dad's jaw tightened. Garrett, sometimes you have to trust your family over lawyers who just want to bill you. Family sticks together, Mom added. We don't need outsiders involved in our private business. Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Garrett, we've sacrificed so much for this family. Dad's health, Mom's future, my education. All delayed so we could support each other. Don't you think we deserve some security? The guilt tactics were aggressive now, almost desperate. They needed me to sign immediately, which meant they were planning something that wouldn't withstand legal scrutiny. You're absolutely right, I said, reaching for a pen. Family is everything. Their relief was palpable. Vanessa squeezed my arm. Dad smiled broadly. Mom dabbed at her eyes with satisfaction. I clicked the pen open and positioned it over the signature line. Then Dorothy's voice cut through the room like a blade. Garrett, don't sign that. Everyone froze. I turned to see Dorothy standing in the doorway, her small frame rigid with determination. Aunt Dorothy, Vanessa said with forced lightness. What a surprise. We weren't expecting you. I'm sure you weren't, Dorothy replied coldly. She walked directly to me and placed her hand on mine, stopping the pen inches from the paper. Garrett, do you know what you're about to sign? Estate planning documents, I said carefully. No. Dorothy's voice was steel. You're about to sign away everything you've worked for to people who've been stealing from you for 3 years. The room exploded. How dare you? Dad roared, surging to his feet. This is family business. Get out. Vanessa screamed. You have no right to interfere. Mom burst into tears. Dorothy, how could you sabotage our family like this? But Dorothy stood unmoved, her eyes fixed on mine. Garrett, I heard them planning this. The fake medical emergencies, the lies about car accidents, the property transfers, all of it. They've been laughing about how gullible you are. She's lying. Vanessa shouted. She's jealous because you help us and not her. Jealous? Dorothy's laugh was bitter. Child, I mortgaged my house to help Garrett start his business when none of you believed in him. I don't want his money, I want to protect him from thieves. Dad stepped toward Dorothy menacingly. You bitter old woman. You've always resented our family's success. Your success. Dorothy's voice rose. You mean Garrett's success that you've been stealing piece by piece? I stood slowly, the pen still in my hand. All eyes turned to me. 3 years of manipulation, lies, and theft crystallized in that moment. The people I'd loved and supported had seen me as nothing more than a mark. The car accident never happened, did it, Vanessa? I said quietly. Her face went white. Garrett, I can explain. Mom never needed emergency surgery. Mom's sobs intensified. You don't understand the pressure we're under. And this, I held up the documents, isn't estate planning. It's a complete asset transfer giving you control of everything I've built. The room fell silent except for Mom's crying. We're your family, Dad said desperately. We deserve to share in your success. Family, I repeated slowly. Family doesn't lie about medical emergencies to steal money. Family doesn't fabricate car accidents. Family doesn't plot to steal everything someone has worked for. I looked at each of them, these people who'd raised me, who I'd loved unconditionally, who'd betrayed me completely. You want to know what family does? I continued. Family believes in you when no one else will. I gestured to Dorothy. Family sacrifices their own security to help you succeed. Family celebrates your victories without trying to steal them. Vanessa tried one last manipulation. Garrett, please. We love you. We just made some mistakes. No, I interrupted. Mistakes are accidents. This was a calculated plan to destroy me financially while pretending to love me. I set the unsigned documents on the table and walked toward Dorothy. Where are you going? Mom cried. I turned back one final time. I'm going home with the only real family I have left. As Dorothy and I reached the door, Dad shouted after us. You'll regret this, Garrett. Family is all you have. I paused without turning around. You're right, Dad. Family is all I have. That's why I'm leaving with her. The door closed behind us and I heard Vanessa scream, You've ruined everything. They had no idea how right she was. Their plans were about to crumble completely. The next morning, Harrison and I filed fraud complaints with both local police and the state attorney general's office. The recorded conversation from dinner, combined with the asset transfer documents and financial records, painted a clear picture of systematic exploitation and attempted fraud. But my family wasn't finished. Within hours of our confrontation, they launched their counterattack. Vanessa posted on social media first, heartbroken tonight. My brother, who I thought loved his family, has turned his back on us completely. We're about to lose our home because he's cutting off all support. I guess money really does change people. Crying face #family first #heartbroken. The post included a photo of her hugging me from last Christmas, both of us smiling. The comments poured in immediately. What a terrible son. How could he abandon his parents? Money corrupts people. So sad. They raised him and this is how he repays them? Mom's church friends shared similar sentiments. Dad's former co-workers expressed outrage at my selfishness. Even distant relatives I barely knew reached out to scold me for abandoning family. My phone buzzed constantly with angry texts and voicemails. The narrative was simple and effective. Successful son abandons struggling family after they helped him achieve his dreams. None of them knew about the lies, the theft, or the attempted fraud. They only saw the surface, a wealthy man cutting off support to his family. For 3 days, I watched my reputation in our small community crumble. Former clients called to cancel contracts. My church asked me to step down from the planning committee. Even some employees seemed uncomfortable around me. Harrison advised patience. Let them dig themselves deeper. The truth will come out, and when it does, the backlash against them will be severe. On Thursday, I received a call from a local TV reporter. Mr. Holbrook, we've received some disturbing information about a family dispute. Would you like to comment on allegations that you've evicted your elderly parents from their home? I almost laughed. They'd actually contacted the media to pressure me. I'd be happy to provide comment, I told the reporter. But I think you'll find the real story is quite different from what you've been told. Friday morning, I sat in Harrison's office reviewing our media strategy. We'd prepared a comprehensive response including financial records, recorded conversations, and legal documents proving the systematic fraud. Are you ready for this? Harrison asked. Once we release this information, there's no going back. I thought about 3 years of manipulation, lies, and theft. I thought about Dorothy mortgaging her house to help me while my parents plotted to steal everything I'd built. I'm ready. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. in Harrison's office. We'd invited the same reporter who'd called about the family dispute, along with local print and online media. At exactly 2 p.m., I sat behind a conference table with documented evidence spread before me. 3 cameras recorded as I began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. I'm here to address recent accusations about my relationship with my family, and to reveal a systematic campaign of fraud and manipulation that has targeted me for over 3 years. I spoke for 20 minutes, methodically presenting evidence. Bank records showing $340,000 in fraudulent requests. Recorded conversations revealing their true intentions. The asset transfer documents that would have given them complete control of my business and properties. These aren't family disputes, I concluded. This is criminal fraud perpetrated by people who calculated that family bonds would prevent me from protecting myself. They were wrong. The questions came immediately. How did you discover their plans? Why didn't you confront them sooner? What's next for your family relationships? I answered each question honestly, explaining how love and loyalty had blinded me to systematic exploitation. The story broke online that evening and dominated local news the next morning. The headline in our regional paper read, Local business owner exposes family fraud scheme. The community response reversed overnight. Comments on Vanessa's social media posts turned hostile. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Stealing from your own family is disgusting. Garrett deserves better than you. Former supporters sent apologies. Cancelled clients called to restore contracts. My church pastor visited personally to apologize for their hasty judgment. But the most satisfying response came Tuesday morning when Harrison called with an update. The district attorney is filing formal fraud charges against all three of them. The evidence is overwhelming and they're looking at significant prison time if convicted. What about restitution? Full recovery of all fraudulently obtained funds plus penalties. They'll also lose the house and cars since the titles were never legally transferred to them. I felt a complex mix of relief, sadness, and justice. These people had raised me, and now they faced criminal prosecution because of their own greed. That afternoon, Vanessa called. Her voice was small, defeated. Garrett, please, can we talk? We made mistakes, but we're still family. Family doesn't commit fraud, Vanessa. Family doesn't lie about medical emergencies. Family doesn't plot to steal everything someone has worked for. We're sorry, she whispered. We'll pay back every penny. With what money? The BMW you bought with fake car accident funds? The designer clothes you purchased with mom's fake surgery money? She started crying. Please don't press charges. We'll lose everything. You already lost everything, I replied quietly. You lost your family when you chose greed over love. I hung up and turned off my phone. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of the new house I'd built on 5 acres outside town. Dorothy had moved in with me, finally accepting help in her advancing age. Her small apartment had been lonely, my large house had been empty. Together we'd created something neither of us had alone, a real family. The peppers are coming in beautifully, Dorothy called from the garden we'd planted together. At 74 she was still the strongest person I knew. My business had thrived after the media attention. Clients appreciated my integrity and transparency. I'd expanded into 3 new counties and employed 27 people. More importantly, I'd learned to distinguish between helping others and enabling exploitation. I'd established a scholarship fund for young entrepreneurs, providing small business loans with mentorship rather than cash handouts. 12 people had received funding so far, and 10 were successfully operating their own businesses. Unlike my family, they'd earned their support through genuine effort and gratitude. The legal proceedings had concluded 3 months ago. Dad received 2 years in prison for fraud and conspiracy. Mom got 18 months plus restitution requirements. Vanessa, as the primary architect of the schemes, received 3 years. I'd attended none of their court hearings. Harrison represented my interests while I focused on building my future rather than dwelling on their consequences. They'd lost the house, cars, and all assets purchased with fraudulent funds. Combined with legal fees and restitution requirements, they faced financial ruin for years to come. The community that had briefly supported them now viewed them as criminals who'd exploited their own family. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, but I felt no guilt either. They'd chosen their path through calculated deception and greed. The consequences were natural results of their own actions. Garrett, Dorothy called from the kitchen window. Your friend Daniel is here. Daniel Gray was one of the scholarship recipients, a 26-year-old who'd built a successful food truck business with my initial $5,000 loan. Unlike my family, he'd repaid every penny within 18 months and continued providing quarterly updates on his progress. Daniel? I walked over to greet him. How's the second truck working out? Perfectly. We're already looking at a 3rd location. His enthusiasm was infectious. Actually, that's why I'm here. I wanted to give you this. He handed me an envelope containing a cashier's check for $10,000. Daniel, you don't owe me anything. I know. But you believed in me when no one else would. This is a down payment on the mentorship center you're planning. I want to help other people the way you helped me. I looked at the check, then at Daniel's earnest face, then at Dorothy smiling from the garden. This was what family looked like. Mutual support, genuine gratitude, and shared success. Thank you, I said, meaning it completely. That evening, Dorothy and I sat on the deck watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The peace I felt was complete. Not because I'd defeated my enemies but because I'd finally found my tribe. Any regrets? Dorothy asked as if reading my thoughts. I considered the question seriously. 3 years of supporting my family, $340,000 in direct theft, and the emotional devastation of discovering their betrayal. Against that, I weighed my current life. A thriving business, genuine relationships, and the satisfaction of helping deserving people achieve their dreams. No, I said finally. I'm grateful it happened. Dorothy raised an eyebrow. Grateful? Their betrayal taught me the difference between real family and people who happen to share my DNA. It showed me that love without respect is manipulation. Most importantly, it led me to build authentic relationships based on mutual support rather than one-sided obligation. Dorothy nodded slowly. Your grandfather used to say that sometimes the best thing toxic people can do is reveal their true nature clearly. It saves you from wasting years on relationships that were never real. As darkness settled over our peaceful property, I reflected on the journey from that devastating conversation outside my parents' house to this moment of complete contentment. My biological family had seen my success as something to exploit. My chosen family, Dorothy, Marcus, my employees, my scholarship recipients, saw it as something to celebrate and build upon. The difference between them wasn't just moral, it was the difference between relationships based on taking and relationships based on giving. I'd learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for protecting your ability to help others authentically. That family isn't defined by blood but by behavior. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destructive choices. Most importantly, I'd learned that justice doesn't require revenge. Truth, consequences, and moving forward with integrity are far more powerful than any vindictive response. As I locked up the house and headed to bed, I felt profound gratitude for the hardest lesson of my life. My family's betrayal had nearly destroyed me financially and emotionally, but ultimately it had set me free to build something better. Sometimes losing the family you thought you had is the only way to find the family you actually need. And in the end, that trade was the best investment I'd ever made. Have you ever experienced manipulation from people you trusted completely? How did you recognize the signs and what boundaries did you establish to protect yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else recognize their own situation. If this story resonated with you, subscribe for your daily dose of chilling revenge tales where justice always finds a way.